Yo, what is going on, guys? Today you're going to learn how to deploy your very own SaaS app to your own server. So this is great for those of you who do not want to use a cloud service such as Vercel, but instead you want to deploy to something like a virtual private server. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to set up our own virtual private server. I'm going to show you how to install Ubuntu, and then we're going to set up something called Nginx and PM2. And this will allow us to essentially run and redirect all of the requests that hit our server to our application and make sure it lives even when we're not monitoring it. I'm also going to end things off by showing you how to go ahead and edit that code from anywhere in the world and directly make the changes to our server code. This is going to be really cool and powerful, and we're going to be able to use our favorite editor, VS Code, in doing so. So this video is perfect for any of you who have already got a SaaS application, or if you're building one out yourself and you've got it hosted on a GitHub repo right now, but you want to deploy it to your own server. In this case, if you don't have a SaaS application, I highly recommend you check out my video right now popping up on the screen to go ahead and build yourself one for absolutely free. So let's go ahead and get started right away. I've actually got a really helpful guide for all of you, and it's basically going to be linked in the description, and I've literally taken the time out to step by step draft out everything you need to do. So I'm going to do this alongside you in today's video. The first step, you want to head over to hostinger.com. Now, Hostinger thankfully are the sponsor of today's video, and once again there's a reason why I'm teaming up with them. You guys probably have seen them in a lot of my videos, but there's a couple of reasons why I chose them to go ahead and show you how to set up your VPS today. But here's a couple of reasons why I personally recommend Hostinger to all of you. Well, first up, they're extremely fast servers. They have a 99.9% uptime guarantee, and they're incredibly cheap to get started. They have hands down some of the best chat support I've ever used, 24/7, 365 days a year. So whatever you're getting stuck in, they're here to help you out. They also have an incredible H panel, which we're going to have a look at today, and they have a free domain and SSL integration to help you get your website nice and secure. They also have a 30-day money back guarantee. So, you can go ahead and give them a try, see for yourself if you enjoy them, and then it's absolutely with no risk. And they even have a brand new VPS AI assistant, which is actually an AI assistant agent that's going to help you with getting a smoother VPS experience. So, first up, let's head over to the first step. And here you can see we've got to sign up to Hostinger because we need a VPS server to deploy our Next.js application to. So of course, I've hooked you up with an awesome deal. You get 10% off by using code Sunny. So we're going to go ahead and click on this link right now, and then you'll hit a page similar to this. Now I'm going to click on hosting, VPS hosting, and you'll land on this page right here. We're going to go ahead and click choose your plan. Now, as you can see, KVM2, this one is a great choice for anyone who's starting out. £6.50 a month, very reasonable, and for what you're getting in return, absolutely fair to go ahead and get started. It's also very much fast enough to pretty much handle all of the needs that you're going to go ahead and mess with. So we're going to click on choose plan right here, and what I want you to do is simply pop out all your details, and then at the bottom of the page, all you need to do is simply scroll down, and where it says have a coupon code, enter coupon code Sunny, and this will go ahead and give you 10% off your plan straight away. So I've got you covered, guys. That means you're getting a total of 61% off the original plan. So saving over £200. That's pretty awesome. Now, once you've done that, you'll go ahead and get access to the H panel. And as you can see, I've got a KVM2 waiting to be set up. So let's run through this together. We're going to click on setup, and then we're going to go ahead and first select a location for our VPS. Now, you can really choose pretty much whatever's closest to you or whatever's closest to your customers. We're going to keep it in Lithuania for now, and we're going to click on continue. We're going to simply scroll down on the plain OS option, and we're going to select Ubuntu, right? We're going to click on select, and then it's going to ask if we want to install any additional features. Now, at this point, I don't want to install this, but you can feel free to benefit from the free malware scanner. And then let's go ahead and click on continue right now. Then you need to go ahead and simply create a root password. So at this point right now, you want to make sure you give something which you're going to remember. So I'm going to go ahead and set a password right now. Now, once that's done, you want to make sure you save this password somewhere secure. Then you want to take note of your VPS hostname. We can actually get this later on, so don't stress. You can also go ahead and actually add an SSH key. And this is really handy because you can basically access your server without a password by using this SSH key. So if you want to, you can simply click on add SSH key, and then you can simply pop in your key here. So they've got nice little instructions to do so. For now, we're simply going to click on continue. Now, next up, make sure you've configured everything correctly, and then we want to go ahead and click on finish setup. Cool. Once you've landed on this page, it will take about 3 to 4 minutes to get set up, and they'll simply email once it's complete. So you can actually go ahead and visit the VPS management page, or you can start looking at how to get things set up. What I recommend is you head back over to our step-by-step guide, and we can look at what we can do next. So we've gone ahead and we've actually done all of these steps right now. Obviously the UI is a little bit nicer than the steps that we included previously, and if you have got a later version, for example, you saw me today install Ubuntu 24, feel free to go ahead and use a later version, okay? Now, the next step is we're actually going to be using something called the Warp terminal. Now, you can use any terminal you'd like, but I highly recommend using the Warp terminal. Warp terminal for me has been a great experience because it has something called Warp AI. So if you ever get stuck when you're trying to figure out a more complicated command, you can simply type in pure English and it will give you the command that you're looking for, which I find really, really awesome. Now, while we wait for our server to get set up, what I highly recommend is you push your code to a GitHub repo. So in this instance, inside the Papa GitHub repo, we have over 65 builds. The link is in the description if you're interested in getting all of these builds. We're going to check out the PDF AI SaaS app that we actually went ahead and built as part of the challenge. And this is the one that we're actually going to go ahead and deploy today. So assume you already have an awesome SaaS that you want to deploy. And we are, of course, using Next.js when I talk about this. And we're going to go ahead and literally clone this inside of our server once it's ready. Okay, so while it's setting things up, you can go ahead and click on the VPS management page. This will take you to a page like this. Now, I want you to click on the SSH access, and these two are the important parts because we're going to use this to actually SSH into our server. Now, you can use a browser terminal, but you can see mine is still making some changes, but we're going to go ahead and jump into the server already. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to run a command, and as you can see here, and type in SSH root at the IP address. Once that's done, it's going to ask us, like, are we trusting them in our first connection? So we're going to type in yes, and then it will go ahead and add that to a list of known hosts. The next step is to actually add in that password that we spoke about. Now, if at any point you forgot your password, you can go ahead and change it here, but the password that we set up earlier, I'm just going to type that in right now. And as you can see, it doesn't actually reflect in the terminal, and that's for security reasons. And if you've entered the correct password, you will now be welcomed to the Ubuntu operating system inside of your server. So this is actually inside of the server right now. Now, all of these instructions are inside the guide that I've given you. And remember, like I said, we're going to be in different versions of Ubuntu depending on where you're watching this or what point in time you're watching this video. So don't worry, you can use the latest version as it will make things a bit more smooth, okay? Now the next step is you can go ahead and scroll down. Now we want to go ahead and actually remove Apache 2, and we want to install something called a reverse proxy and Node.js server. This is essentially going to allow us to do a very simple thing. Think of it very simply. What we want to do is we have our user going to our website. In this case, it'll be the IP address that we're essentially hosting our server at. Once they hit the IP address, where does the user go? So what we do is we set up something called a reverse proxy, and this is where we use Nginx to do so. Once they hit our IP address, we're going to redirect all of the requests to our local host, which is actually running our app. So this is how we're going to set everything up, and I'm going to make it extremely easy to go ahead and follow along. Now in this case, what you can do is you can simply go ahead and copy all of this command right here. And what this will do is it will, like I said, remove Apache 2, set up Node on our server, and it will also install the reverse proxy that we're going to need to get things set up. If you're confused at any point, I've actually broken down all of the commands down below. So let's go ahead and paste in that command. And as you can see, it will take a bit of time to go ahead and get everything set up. While that's happening, we can proceed on to the next step. May not work completely smoothly because Nginx, I believe, was removed in a specific upgrade with Ubuntu. So what you need to do is you need to actually install it by using the following command: sudo apt install nginx-y. We're going to go ahead and install this right now. And as you can see, it sets everything up like we need it to. What I would then recommend you do is you check the status of your Nginx. So what you want to do is run this command right here, sudo system control status Nginx, and then you can see it now, it's active and running. Okay, so that's great. Control C to exit that. Okay. So once we've done that, what we can then do is proceed to the next step because we have our Nginx server up and running. So next, I want you to go ahead and do this command right here. So we're going to go ahead and pop that in. And as you can see now, we have a blank screen. So this is great. We're going to head over to step 6. And I simply want you to copy all of this, right? Formatting may get mixed up when you go ahead and paste it in. So you see the indentation is not as clean as it could be. It doesn't really affect anything in the grand scheme of things. The main thing I want you to pay attention here that we're going to be changing is the server IP. Okay. So what I want you to do is delete that. Go back over to our VPS and copy the IP address. You can see this is the same here and here. We're simply going to paste that in and we're going to add a semicolon. Now I need to save this to our Nginx file. So I'm going to do a Control X. So you can see here we've got Control X and it says save modified buffer. I'm going to type in Y and then it says file name to write and we're going to hit on enter. And as you can see now, it works perfectly. It exited successfully and that's correct. That means we've changed our Nginx reverse proxy setup. If you weren't able to do that, remember the previous step is very important. You need to go ahead and install Nginx before you do so, okay? So this tutorial before, I made it before, I believe it was when it was Ubuntu 22. And that's the reason why, because I believe it's not installed by default anymore in Ubuntu 24, okay? Now, once that's done, we simply scroll down. You can save and close the file like I just did. So the next step is really important. And it's basically called creating a symbolic link. In short, what this means is it essentially will allow us to have our own custom Nginx configuration for our Next.js application. And we remove the default Nginx behavior. Okay, so that's essentially all we need to understand at this point, and then you can dive into it if you want a bit more information. So we're going to remove the default here, and we're actually going to instead redirect to the following place. So etc/nginx sites enabled. Okay, as you can see here, I've got one large command, but instead I'm going to show you do it step by step. So we're going to actually run the first command here. So we're going to go ahead and say sudo rm and we're going to delete this file right here. By doing that, we've now removed the default behavior. Okay, the second step we want to do is go ahead and do sudo ln-s, and then we're going to link the sites available Next.js conf to the etc nginx sites enabled. So we're going to hit enter, and this will go ahead and create a symbolic link. So you can go ahead and pause the video right now, and you simply want to just copy this command. As you can see, there's a slight variation to the command inside of the guide, and that's because this guide is for Ubuntu 22. And if you're using 24 or above, you can simply go ahead and pause the video and follow the one on the screen right now. The next step is to restart Nginx. So we're simply going to go ahead and type in sudo service nginx restart. This will make sure the new configuration file is in effect. Next up, we're going to make a new directory to store our Next.js app. So we're going to create a folder by saying make directory, and then it's got var/www/next.js, and then we're going to cd into that directory. So we're simply going to pop that in like so. And as you can see now, we are inside that directory. And this is now currently an empty directory. We're going to then install GitHub, so that way we can actually git clone that repo into our server itself, right, into that folder. So remember, the SaaS app we've already built, we're going to go ahead and pull that into our folder right now. So as you can see, we go ahead and run that command, and this will install GitHub into our server. And as you can see here, what account do you want to log into? We have github.com or GitHub Enterprise Server. Well, in this case, I can very simply just go ahead and hit enter because it's GitHub. And then in this case, what is your preferred protocol for Git operations on this host? We actually prefer HTTPS. You can use whichever one you want. Authenticate Git with your GitHub credentials, yes. And then log in with a web browser. So I want to go ahead and pop that in. And then it says, first copy your one-time code. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this right now. And then I'm going to hit enter to open GitHub in our browser. And as you can see right now, obviously this is not going to work because we're actually in a server environment. Okay, so you want to copy this, and then you want to go to login device on this link right here. Okay, now once you've done that, if you're already logged in, it will go ahead and work straight out the bat, or you can simply go ahead and continue with the code that it prompted us with earlier. And as you can see, this is the code that where we need to put it. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that code, head back over, and I'm simply going to paste that in and click continue. This will go ahead and actually connect the two together, and I'm going to authorize it to allow it to use what we need. So I'm going to go ahead and use the passkey to authenticate myself. This will verify it, and then boom, we are in. Okay. So once that's done, if we close that up, you can see now we are authenticated as my correct account. So this is great. So once we've done that step, we're going to go down over and we're going to actually install a node version manager. This is really important. It allows us to switch node versions on our virtual private server. I'm going to simply copy these commands right here and install that inside of our server right now. And as you can see here, we've got a bit of broken packages, and for now, I believe we should be okay. But you can go ahead and actually feel free to debug those themselves. But for now, I believe this will be okay to actually proceed. So we've got version 22.8 installed, and that's not too bad. So I think we can go ahead and proceed moving forward. And to be honest, if the next step doesn't work, then we had a problem in the previous step. So we can actually very easily fix it. So I want you to copy this command here. And as we're inside the correct Next.js folder, we're going to go ahead and paste it in, and I'm going to name my app. Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to say, let's just call it the SaaS app, right? So this is the scenario for a new app. However, I'm not going to hit enter here because this would create a new app. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to be showing you how to deploy your previous SaaS application into your VPS. So that's the typical approach if you are following this tutorial thereafter. And then you can still use this approach, but I'm going to show you how you can actually go ahead and clone the current SaaS that we've actually already built. So in this case, inside the Papagea repo, we have our SaaS app. You can go ahead and copy this, and we've got HTTPS. And as long as you have access to this, this will work, right? Otherwise, you have to get yourself access, or you have to create your own repo. But I'm going to go ahead and type in git clone, and I'm going to simply paste it in like so. And at this point, it will clone that into the directory. Now, if I type in ls to show all of the files inside the folder, you can see we now have a chat with PDF file here. So I'm going to do cd chat with PDF, and then we're going to hit enter. And as you can see, I'm inside of this folder right now. The first step is we're going to do npm install, and this will actually install all of the dependencies of that project into that folder. So that way we've got all of the node modules and everything that we need. And as you can see, Hostinger is blazingly fast in doing this. Okay. Now the next step is we can go back over to our guide, and as you can see, this is if we were to create a new app. We actually are using an existing SaaS app, like I told you. Then once the npm modules are completely done, we're going to go ahead and do npm run dev to start up the application. Okay. And then we can go ahead and build it and run it in production mode. The next step after that is to install PM2. Now, what is PM2 inside of our VPS, right? So PM2 is essentially a process manager. Now, this means that we can essentially give it a bit of a configuration, a bit of a setup. And that means that once we've set everything up, it will basically, every time the VPS starts up, or if it restarts for whatever reason, it will go ahead and launch the application. That means that it's always up and running. And that's the behavior that we expect from a application running on our own server. Cool. So now our app is completely installed. We can actually do npm run dev, and we just want to do this to make sure everything's working. And as you can see, that is great, right? So it is working. This will not work if I click on that because it's localhost of our VPS. Okay, so I want to do Control C. Instead, I want to actually get this up and running so we can start to test this in our actual use case. Okay, so in order to do this, we're going to do npm run build. And I'm actually going to go ahead and do it afterwards, directly npm run start. So whenever you have this and command, right, twice, it just means after this is done, then run this, okay? So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. And this will create a production build of our application. And then it will go ahead and actually run the app, okay? Now, this app will probably fail for a couple of reasons because we need our environment variables, which we haven't got since we've cloned it, right? So I'm going to show you how you can get this up and running in VS Code afterwards to modify the files directly on the server. So that way we can work with this in a bit. In this case, we've got our service key. Okay, so here we go. You can see it's actually broken at this point already because in order to actually get everything up and running, we need the service key JSON file, okay? And as you can see, that is the reason why this is breaking. So I'm going to show you how we can actually get this up and running firstly to overcome this hurdle, and then we can proceed to getting it set up with PM2. So what I want you to do is open up Visual Studio Code. Once you've got Visual Studio Code open, you can see I've got a build here. This is on my local machine. But what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and download. If you simply type in SSH in the marketplace, download the first one right here. You can see this is from Microsoft Remote SSH. Once you've enabled and installed it, then what we want to do is simply close it, and we want to go ahead and do Command Shift P, and we're going to type in SSH. okay? And as you can see here, it says connect to host. We've got add new SSH host. But the main thing here is really connecting to the host. So I'm going to do that firstly. And now I need to put in the name of our host, right? So I'm going to actually go ahead and say root at, remember the IP address that we saw earlier. You can find it in the H panel as well. We'll say root at IP address, okay? And we're going to hit enter. And as you can see, it pops up in this new browser and it will ask for the password. Now the password, we're simply going to go ahead and input like so. And we're going to hit enter to go ahead and confirm it. And as you can see now, this should go ahead and connect. But the really cool part, which it did it really fast there, is it's actually downloading VS Code server onto our VPS server. And this is really awesome for a couple of reasons. It means now I can code using Visual Studio Code directly into that code that we actually used previously, which is damn cool. You can see down here, we are actually inside of the server itself, okay? We're connected to the remote, and as you can see, I can go ahead and actually open a folder. Now here we've got a bunch of different files and it automatically pre-fills root. We actually want to get rid of that. And remember, we created our folder inside of var/www/next.js, right? So it was actually inside of here. And then if we go one step further, you can see the app that we actually imported in. So that's great. So what I want to do is I actually want to click on OK. Okay, so I simply hit enter. And as you can see now, this will go ahead and firstly ask me if you trust it, because obviously we're SSHing into an external server. It could be dangerous for a couple of reasons, but in this case, I trust this. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I trust the authors. Okay. Now, in this case, you can see here, I've got full access to the code. So I'm actually seeing and editing the code on the VPS right now. That's pretty damn cool, guys. So the first couple of things I want to do is I want to add in a .env file for this exact code. We need an environment file. So an environment file like so. And I've actually got everything pre-set up beforehand. So I'm actually going to go ahead and paste in the values. So this is from my local machine. So I'm going to paste in my keys like so. So I'll paste in the keys, save the file, right? And then I'm actually going to need a service key JSON file, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and take my service key. So whatever you need to do to get your SaaS up and running, I have a service key right here. I'm going to go ahead and simply paste that in here as well. And as you can see, that's just gone ahead and added it into our code right there on our server. Okay, so once that's done, we've got our keys ready and everything up and running perfectly as we needed it. Firstly, I think that's pretty cool to be able to edit on a virtual server like this super easily and simple, and it makes things a lot easier to work with. All right, so let's head back over now and let's try that command one more time. So firstly, I just want to show you, if I type in ls, we can actually see that it did in fact modify the files. You see, I've now got a service key JSON, which I didn't have before. So I'm going to go ahead and just simply repeat the last command by doing npm run build and npm run start. Now we should not get an issue. And you can see here, we have got an environment local file being used. And this is kind of handy as well because it's on our own server. So we can actually go ahead and build directly off our own local environment variables. Whereas when we deploy to Vercel, we have to go ahead and set the environment variables in the cloud environment, which is Vercel. Okay. So as you can see right here, this is working perfectly now. It's going ahead and creating an optimized production build. Awesome. And there we have it, guys. You guys can see right here, the app is running. That's great. That's exactly what we wanted. For now, I'm going to go ahead and actually cut that one. So I'm actually going to cut that by doing Control C, but we can see it ran successfully, which is great, right? The next step on the instructions is to install PM2 globally on your VPS. Now, previously I did tell you to go back to the root directory to install it. Doesn't really make a difference because we're actually installing it globally. So you can simply copy the second command, come down here and paste in sudo npm install -g PM2. Right, this will install the process manager into our virtual private server. So as this is happening, first I just want to highlight, like, it's really fast. And I hope you guys can see right here that the internet speed on the VPS is blazingly fast. This is another reason why I love using Hostinger. And as you can see, it successfully added the package, right? That's great. Let's head back down over, and we're already inside of our Next.js directory, so we do not need to do that. Now, instead, what we want to do is we want to start our Next.js application using Process Manager 2. Okay, so this is the really interesting part. Previously, you saw I did the command npm run build, and the main one here is npm run start. Right now, what I want to do is I want to tell PM2 to run the start command. Right. So what I do is I give it a name and I simply run the start command from my folder. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that right now. Next.js is going to be completely fine for the name here because I'm only running one app. So pm2 start npm name Next.js start. Okay. And as you can see now, it's actually running the application. So you guys can see it's actually running it, right? Which is pretty cool. The next step is I want you to go ahead and run pm2 startup. This will generate a script for us that we can copy and paste into the terminal, which enables it to start at boot. So for any reason our VPS was to restart or get shut down, when the VPS starts up, it will automatically boot our application. So this makes things a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And I'm simply going to type in, and let's do pm2 startup. Okay. And as you can see, this goes ahead and creates a script for us, right? Now, in order to basically save this, so we can go ahead and do it on reboot, like I mentioned, pm2 save. So you want to copy that, go ahead and save it like so. And as you can see, saving current process list, successfully saved as we needed it. Okay, so here's the moment of truth. Let's see if our application is actually running on our IP address. So if we've set everything up correctly with Nginx, it means that our reverse proxy will be working. This means that when a user comes to the IP address, we can then go ahead and redirect their request to our localhost 3000, which is of course running our production version of our application. That is being run with the Process Manager 2, and it's always going to be running even if it was to get restarted because we just went ahead and set that up accordingly. So let's go ahead and give that a try right now. Simply go over to one of your web browsers. So in this case, we've got a web browser here, and we're simply just going to go ahead and navigate to the IP address. In this case, this is my IP address. And as you can see, guys, there you have it. That is literally working just as we expected it, right? It's going to go ahead and load in the image because it's the first time loading. But you guys can see right here, the SaaS app is actually running perfectly with our VPS. Now, you might be wondering, what if I don't want this IP address as my website name? Well, that's where, you can go ahead and actually purchase something called a domain name and DNS records, and you can basically handle all of that accordingly and basically map your IP address to a more nicer name such as chatwithpdf.com or something like that, right? Hostinger is an awesome place to go ahead and get your domain names as well. So as you can see, we've shown the proof in the pudding, but if I actually want to show you on the server it running, if we type in pm2 list, you can actually see for yourself the Next.js app is up and running and it's working as expected. This is absolutely great. It's where we want to be, and you've gone ahead and deployed your application just as we needed it right now. Okay, so this is great. Now we can do two things here. We can either push code to our GitHub repo and then come back into our VS Code editor and actually pull the changes inside of our terminal here and go ahead and work in that fashion. Or I can set up the way we're used to, develop it inside of a development localhost environment. But how do we do that on a virtual private server? So how would I work on my SaaS if I'm not actually able to, see the local host of my server? Well, there's a couple of cool ways we can do this. Well, firstly, I want to go ahead and do npm run dev, and this will actually not work the way we expected because 3000 is currently already in use because that's the one where our app is actually running in production, right? So what we can do is we can run it in 3001 instead. And as you can see here, we can go ahead and it runs on 3001. But in order to get access to that local host on my, external VPS, we can go to the ports tab. And this is where it gets really cool. You see, we've got this port 3001 and it actually forwards our server port on the external VPS hosted over at Hostinger to this forwarded local address, right? So I can click on this little globe icon, and guys, just like this, we can actually go ahead and see our local host. And this is so powerful for so many reasons. And I want to show you that this is actually a local host variant. So if I was to go to my page right now, so this is going to be the landing page right here. And let's go ahead and modify something. For example, on the screen right now, it says your interactive document companion 123. And if I hit save now, you guys can see in a short second, we even get hot reloading, guys. Look at that. This is actually a localhost variant. So if you want to edit your code and still get access to your local host, this is the best way to do it, right? You can go ahead and do it just like that. So extremely easy to go ahead and host it on your own server, have full control over the entire process and how your app runs on your own owned virtual private server. And what's really cool here is I would highly recommend, if you got to this point, I would highly recommend you set up your own CI pipeline, really take it a step further. So that way, every time you push to your GitHub code, it triggers a build and deployment. So that way, maybe it restarts your PM2 process. There's so many different directions and steps that you can take at this point, but this is a perfect place to go ahead and get started. You have a completely fully functional application running on your own virtual private server. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you deploy a SaaS to your own VPS. And remember, guys, if you get stuck at any point, simply head over to the H panel, go over to the AI assistant, and here you can ask direct questions as to what is going on, right? So you can go ahead and say, explain what PM2 is, right? For example, and it will give you a complete breakdown of what PM2 is. And then you can go ahead and really ask it what's going on, right? So in this case, this will really help you understand, especially in an environment such as a server environment, right? Where we don't have particularly like an easy clickable drag and drop situation like a normal user interface, right? When you're messing around with terminals and servers, it can get a bit tricky at times, especially when you've got lots of things like Nginx involved, reverse proxies. Here you could even ask it to explain what a reverse proxy is, and you'll get the answers that you're looking for. So this is, in my opinion, a great way to go ahead and dial in your knowledge alongside this video that you're watching right now. And as you can see right here, a reverse proxy is the type of server that sits in front of web servers and forwards clients requests to those web servers. So exactly what we did right now. When the user hits the IP address, it forwards it to our local host running our production build. With that said, guys, don't forget to go ahead and check out the guide that I've attached in the description. And remember, guys, this is an updated video. So the Ubuntu 24.0 operating system is used in this build. So if you are watching one of my previous videos on VPS deployments, definitely check this one out, because you're going to learn how to deploy it to the most up-to-date version, right? And of course, with that, the guide will need to be modified slightly when you're watching it to follow what we're doing today. So all you need to do is watch back every step that I did and basically do the exact same to get your VPS up and running perfectly. So with that said, guys, if you got stuck at any point, feel free to go ahead and drop a comment. I'll try and help you out as much as I can. Don't forget to drop a like on this video if you found it useful. And if you're watching this video and you haven't already subscribed, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel right now so you don't miss any future videos. As always, guys, it's your boy Sunny, aka Papa React, and I will see you in the next video. Peace. If you enjoyed this video, but you found it a little bit too tricky, then you can actually go ahead and check out my flagship course, Zero to Full Stack Hero, at papareact.com/course on the screen right now, and go ahead and join our course and community where we have coaching calls, over 1,000 students, and awesome content inside, right? Over 200 hours of content, so you can go ahead and dial in all of these skills and so much more. Feel free to check it out on the link on the screen right now. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.